we carry with us history, without even maybe knowing it, right? And that's another piece that it plays into our genetics, it plays into how we heal, it plays into our ingrained mentalities. So the historical and the intergenerational components of everything impact us from the biological level all the way to the emotional and mental level. And it's something that we need to take time to really understand and process.
Hello, my name's Naranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Pleasure of talking to Dr. Mala, a trauma survivor and chief clinical officer at recovery.com, where she specializes in PTSD, TBI, and military psychology. She champions recovery literacy to make healing accessible and inclusive by turning resilience into a catalyst of collective empowerment and healing. Enjoy the conversation. Thank you for watching. Hello and welcome to Dr. Marla. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited for this conversation because you've been one tremendously busy lady. Very busy lady in doing what you do and sharing all that you know on so many different platforms. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So let's get in it with a really big and bold question. What do you believe about yourself? And does it define who you are? And I know that's a really big question with all the skills and experiences that you have. But at this juncture of your life, at this moment of time, does
Yeah.
it define who you are?
The work that I do, does it define who I
Yeah,
am?
your
Yeah.
own beliefs about
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Well, let's start with beliefs about myself. I think that's such a beautiful question and an important one.
Mm,
Um, it's certainly something that I've had to cultivate throughout my life and,
mm,
you know, have had several traumas, and situations that have challenged belief in myself. And
yeah,
um, in going through those traumas, of course, we never wish that on anyone, but in going through those traumas, it reinforces how important that belief is and strengthens it in the long run if you allow it to. So belief in myself, yes. I believe in my capability to heal. I believe in my capability to do. I believe in my capability to share with others and help others heal, and so much more. I believe in my ability to continuously learn, which also, factors into that healing process. So, yes, I believe in myself. um the work that I do, there's so much that I do, and I do that intentionally because my saying has always been, the more that you do or the more that you learn, the more you're able to serve a wider population of people, variety of people. And that's always been my mission, because how many lives can I impact positively has been the question that I've kept in my heart and at the forefront of everything that I do. So the work that I do, the many facets of it, is definitely part of who I am. And I think what I excite myself with is what new uh, projects, energies can I, explore in a healthy way to continue to spread that mission and to reinforce not only the belief in myself, but my capabilities as well.
That's a big one. That's a big
Yeah,
one to
yeah.
be in that space of wanting to serve,
Hmm.
but also wanting to expand and wanting to grow, which not a lot of people want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I think so many times, I mean, even recently, you get to a situation where you're like, you're outlining, like what the timeline of research or, like putting out a project looks like, and
Mhm.
not everybody's going to understand that because if you're not, especially in my realm, if you're, in academia or if you're in
Right.
clinical work or in research, you have to translate some of that. But even in translating, it's amazing how some people will just put the wall up because there's a lack of understanding and no real attempt to, try to understand,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
ask the questions that shows interest in wanting to grow with you,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
even independently, but with what you're sharing, and what you're wanting to put out there. So I face that on a daily basis.
Hmm.
I can admit to the fact that when those walls go up, that is a pain point for me because
Mm.
in my heart, I'll say, well, no, I want you to learn. I want you to know. I want you to be here with me, in this space. And,
Yeah.
um, I have to then take a step back and say, it's going to be okay. Like we're going to figure
Yeah.
out how to translate this for the masses. So yeah.
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 And that's the challenge, right? I mean, you've got such a broad spectrum of work,
Hmm.
from trauma work, from some of the energetic work, from all of the other facets of, and like you said, academia.
Hmm.
It comes to a halt of, are you willing to look at this? Be it for
Hmm.
yourself or the people that you serve. I think that's really the big question is, are you willing to look at it even if it's only 10% of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a willingness? Is there a curiosity? Is there something there that a desire to better yourself? And I know
Mhm.
that sounds really cliche and it's really oversaid. I mean, especially over the last 4 or 5 years with COVID and that whole thing that happened.
Mhm.
But I think it's crucial in revisiting the world that we live in, but also revisiting our contribution to, even if it's just our small nuclear family that we are connected to, our own community.
Yeah.
Forget about the having the big splash to the world and having that greater impact, but just from this space,
Hmm.
are people willing to be open, to be receptive, to explore?
Yeah. I think not everyone is. You know, not everyone is. And I after that initial pain point of like, ugh, I wish you were, then I think I move into a space of I actually feel sorry for you. I kind of empathize and pity, the fact that there's such a barrier to wanting to learn and be curious. But the natural question is if there is a barrier, then why does that barrier exist? There's obviously something behind that. Unfortunately, usually all of those paths lead to some kind of fear or anxiety. So doing the dig, and that's where the kind of like want to be able to be empathic with that stage is like, okay, yeah, that can be scary. That fear is obviously gripping you somehow and creating these blockers. So how do we navigate that? And of course the want to serve in me is like, okay, let's tease that through. Let's figure that out. What are the fears? Yeah.
That's right. And
Hmm.
that's where the other person often recoils and go,
Hmm.
"You're
Hmm.
answering a question with a question? What?" So
Hmm.
yeah, that doesn't work sometimes for many. But my curiosity leads into not only the body of work that you've done so far, which I doubt is going to be the end of it. I think there's huge mountains yet to climb, but you're up for the fight. So What was it that took you on this trajectory of your own life from PTSD to trauma to academia to teaching to homeschooling your children? All of those pieces, like what what's your driver?
Yeah. I don't think when I first started on this journey, I didn't put the pieces together, and there's always a cliche question when you go into school for anything mental health based.
Yeah,
The commentary is like, you're obviously going through this educational process because there's always something to resolve for yourself. And
yeah.
I 100% was in a state of complete denial. And
Mm,
it took me until the trauma that I encountered during that educational process
mm,
for me to realize how it all connected and how that big ball of issues, let's say, impacted me and motivated me. Impacted me not only in a way where I knew I needed to heal, but in a way that I knew I wanted to serve as well, and that
mm,
service could also be part of my healing process. So, I got into this work originally because I was just passionate about wanting to be there for people. I was
mm,
always the person that people would tap on the shoulder and talk to. And it was like there was an ongoing joke, even in my family, like it was written on my forehead, just talk to me. Everyone would come and talk to me, and I would hold space for them. And I
yeah.
saw people who didn't have the opportunity, even as a child, to have that space held for them and recognized what that did to them. And that
Mm,
hurt, like to see it hurt. And I literally remember as a child saying to myself, I never want to let anybody feel like they can't have space held for them. You know,
mm,
that was what I said to myself as a child. And so that's where the journey began. And of course, in wanting to be able to do that for other people and recognizing it external to myself, I then started to realize, well, actually, what I want is to have space held for me too,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
So then coming into, the schooling of everything, I actually started as a pre-med student, was in an accelerated program, and was scolded for spending more than 5 minutes in a room with a patient. And functional medicine was not a thing at the time, which I wish it was, because then I would have been in, like heaven. But I really quickly decided, because I was really just so unmotivated when the advisors and the supervisors and mentors were like, nope, you got to get in and out. Can't do that. And my question was, how am I supposed to know and help somebody heal if I don't know them, if I don't hear them? So I felt lost. And then that led me to explore, and I found a biopsychology class and felt like I was in complete heaven, because it was everything that I loved from that biological standpoint, but then really applying it to the psychology of individuals, and being in a realm and in a department where talking to one another was encouraged, you know. So that's what started the trajectory. And then, I very quickly said I wanted to specialize in marriage and family. That took me to my master's program. There were not many at the time. And, I was very lucky that locally I found one. So I was able to stay at home in Michigan at the time. And then, that led me to my regular psych, the clinical psych. And I also did some specializations while I did that degree in education and development, as well as business psychology, IO psychology, because, um, you know, especially during that era, the corporate world was yielding so much stress, so much trauma, still is, arguably, that the psychology of understanding what makes, a company and a group really thrive was interesting to me. So I decided to dive into that a bit as well. And like I mentioned, in the middle of all of that, I did encounter another trauma. It was intimate partner violence, and trauma. And that's when things started to really come to a head in terms of my own healing journey and looking at the interconnectedness of everything, from childhood traumas that I'd experienced to the present day. And I was very fortunate to have a couple of mentors on literally two separate sides of the spectrum. One was very psychodynamic, the other was very CBT. And with the two of them, holding my hand and, standing behind me, not only did I learn, but I started my own healing journey. And having a background in a lot of artistic things, from Indian classical vocal to Indian classical dance, and having meditation, yoga, and breath work be a really solid piece for both. I was able to recognize how healing those elements were and how those methods of literally connecting with myself was also formative for my healing. And again, living in an era when integration in care and recovery was not a thing. It was considered woo-woo, to be engaging in anything that was Eastern based at all. But I saw the benefits and I built my own recovery program. And that's what created kind of like the platform for me to really push and want to program development integrative care models that combined, evidence-based approaches with more holistic approaches and energy work and, customize that to each individual the most as much as we could. So that's the journey. That's what led
Quite a
me.
journey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite a journey. During that journey, what was the process, if there was one, for you to integrate or really bring together the cultural piece?
Mhm.
We're
Mhm.
both from the same background,
Yeah. Yeah.
relatively.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what does that look like in as new generations come up in this
Yeah.
Western world?
That's a
And
great
they are toying with that whole space of, am I this culture? Am I that color? What's my identity? What's my beliefs? All of that. I
Mhm.
grappled with it, first generation British. I
Yep.
grappled with it, and I'm sure you did too.
Mhm.
So as it leans further into it, what's your experience in terms of not only gone through your own healing journey,
Mhm.
but presenting that out there for future generations
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
look like us?
Oh, 100%. I love this question. Um, I will say that some of my trauma, was exacerbated by the fact that the community that I was in didn't have the ability to be supportive. So I saw people going through trauma. I saw people suffer from mental health issues and not be supported, be shunned, be stigmatized, the reinforcement of silence, right? As being stoic and presenting yourselves a certain way was something that happens not just in our culture, but in so many cultures, right? And it is very telling, when that happens, it's very clear that that community or any community doesn't have the tools to be able to say this is okay because there's been generations of reinforcing that whole concept that silence is strength, right? So to me, when I was growing up and my poor parents were like, ah, I was like, I don't really want to have to do anything with the community. What being Indian for me, being Asian for me, did not equate to going to all the functions and being amongst the people that I literally saw. And there were beautiful people in that environment that did embrace and wanted to help, but then there were those who did not. And I just didn't want to be in the middle of it, right? So I had to redefine for myself what it meant to be an Asian Indian in America. Okay. My parents did a beautiful job of reinforcing all the things, language, food, festivals, all of the parts of culture, dance, music, art. Um, and that was so healing to me as a child when I felt like I couldn't be part of a community. My family was my community, right? And my movement, my vocalizations through singing, my meditation, my yoga took me to a place that I really don't have words for. Um, you know, I really felt the most not only connected to myself, but whatever is higher. And I mean, I get tingles, when I think about it, but it's still here to this day. That's how much it means to me. And so, my definition of being Indian comes from that, right? And being able to maintain that. And the other really interesting thing is, of course, going back to India, the automatic expectation is that there will not be a carryover of the culture, that you'll have accents and there will be all these things, and they wait. My experience has been they wait for you to mess it up, right? And my mom and my dad did such a beautiful job of training us and teaching us so that we wouldn't have the accent, so that we could pass as locals if we wanted to. The only problem that we ended up bumping into is they'd take one look down at our feet and be like, nope, you're not from here, you know? So even in that, there was a discrimination, and that is a real feeling, like there is that concept of, for a lot of people who are in India, if you go in as a non-resident, you're not from here, you're American, right? And then in America, it's, okay, you're Southeast Asian, but what does that mean, right? Sure, I've got a little bit of the language. Sure, I've got a little bit of the culture, and that's cool, but I'm American too. So what does that mean? And you know what? I am American. I love America. I love the fact that I was born and brought up here. I love the fact that I was exposed to diversity. I love the fact that I had the opportunity to be able to strengthen and utilize both aspects of myself, being American and embracing that, and being Indian and embracing that. And what I would say to future generations is, you need to start with defining what your culture of origin means to you, you know? And then when you find the things that root you, that ground you, that heal you, that resonate with you, you run with that. And that's what will fill, that category for you, that will help define that for you. And it doesn't have to, whatever anybody else says doesn't have to matter unless you give it that importance, of course, which I don't encourage you to do, but, anybody to do. You've got to define it and embrace it for yourself. And um, I think that's a beautiful thing that we can all do for ourselves.
Absolutely. It's us allowing us to give it meaning for
Mm-hmm.
what we want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But what we both know is the sticky part of us giving meaning to something comes loaded with biases,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
conscious, unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And then from my perspective, the epigenetic
Mm-hmm.
component of karma
Mm-hmm.
and all of those pieces, which to me is the best part
Yeah.
of unraveling this thing called life and this thing called experiences of this human experience that we get to unwrap each of
Yeah.
those parcels, even though they are painful,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but but
Mm-hmm.
we get that opportunity. This is what we signed up for to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that you brought that up too. I mean, it also makes me think about how in our bodies, we we carry with us history, without even maybe knowing it, right? And that's another piece that, I mean, it plays into our genetics, it plays into how we heal, it plays into our ingrained mentalities, So the historical and the intergenerational components of everything impact us from the biological level all the way to the emotional and mental level. And it's something that we need to take time to really understand and process. Yeah.
And I think that's the key thing, is to understand it and process it.
Mhm.
Even if, because I'm sure there's many other Indians out there not living in India,
Mhm.
you don't feel like it's a problem.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
living my life, people accept me for who I am, and it's good. I'm
Mhm.
good. I get to do my Indian thing, I get to do my non-Indian thing. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think there needs to be that inner dialogue,
Mhm.
conversation, and understanding and awareness
Mhm.
as to what it is and to create a space for it. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean you need to do a whole therapy session or whatever that looks like, but at
Mhm.
least create space that there's been something that happened here.
Mhm. Mhm.
Regardless of whether it's impacting you profoundly or not, even if it's just an ounce of it, there's an influence there, that there
Mhm.
needs to be that dialogue and journey and introspection
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
say, okay, I've been through it, because we
Mhm.
know we can't get around it. That's what our parents did, and that's what they knew how to do.
Absolutely.
So we get that opportunity to go through it. So we've to go through it on an energetic, on a mental
Mhm.
level, but on also on a heart space level.
Yeah.
And I think those are the real crucial pieces and opportunities that we get to have.
100%. I think we're and this is the other message that I would say to future generations, is that we are well positioned to be able to look at it from an even wider scope. Look at everything, look at life from a wider scope, rather than being limited to just one area, one message, one culture. No, we have this beautiful ability to have within us more than just one, which most of us do, technically speaking, you know? Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And I think with that, it shifts the opportunity of future generations to come forward.
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
know, again, it sounds really cliche and it sounds, oh my gosh, very, esoteric, if you will, of, oh, you'll help the path going forward. But the realism is who we are influences who we're around.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And, you know, whether we want to admit it or not, we are part of paving the paths,
Yeah,
and if we accept that responsibility, then it gives us the opportunity to do it even more mindfully, you
yeah.
know, which I think we all need to at least sit and think about, and hopefully, think about, and apply, like what we think we should be doing to be able to help with forging those paths or paving those paths. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there needs to also be an element of a reloop that has
Hmm.
to happen of, I was born and raised in England.
Hmm.
You're born and raised in America.
America, yeah. Hmm.
Is going back to our heritage, going back to our ancestral roots, if you will, to
Hmm.
get a sense, to get a feeling, to get an understanding as to what it is and where we came from to a certain degree, but also from the point of watching and observing and recognizing the transition and the growth in that space.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just as it is here,
Hmm.
England wasn't the same and isn't the same country as to when I was born and raised there. America is not. India isn't the same. But
Hmm.
yet somehow we bring those, um, I want to say archaic
Hmm.
belief systems
Hmm.
that were migrated from that country from our parents, and
Yeah.
those get stuck.
Stuck.
Whereas if we were to go, because I remember when my first trip going back to India as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
the only time I went back was as an adult, recognizing the belief systems and values shifted
Yeah.
over there, but I was living with it. I was raised in it from the
Mm-hmm.
context of when my parents migrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because that's what we knew, right?
That's right.
We were taught in a particular way. And so that's creating and perpetuating cycles, right?
That's
So
right.
when we are able to go back and see that cycles have been broken in many ways, right? And
Mhm.
on the flip side, cycles have not been broken as well. There
Uh-huh.
are areas where that has not, it's not happened.
Yeah.
But when we're able to see that progress and we're able to think about within us, wait a second, that's actually what I'm trying to do too, what I've done for myself, that
Mhm.
helps us cycle break for future generations,
Yeah.
right? So it's important, I think, not I think I know, it's important for us to recognize the progression, so that
Mhm.
we can pull ourselves out of what we were taught and what was reinforced simply because that's what generationally happened.
That's right.
You know, that's the generational cycle
Yeah.
break that I definitely talk about with a lot of people, but is so important for us to do. We're living in a
Mhm.
beautiful era where, and I'm so excited about this, where uh, as females of diversity, even in very specific terms, like Asian females,
Mhm.
Southeast Asian females,
Mhm.
now coming together to
Mhm.
be able to help each other rise up.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is revolutionary. Because going back to what I grew up seeing, it was always competition. It was always,
That's right.
like who's the other person, what's going on, like all
Yeah.
the comparisons and what have you. And now the generations are coming forward and we're saying, no, let's help each other. Let's talk.
Mhm.
Let's hold
Mhm.
space. We can do this together. It's not a
Mhm.
competition. We're
That's
still
right.
working on it,
Yeah.
but it's happening. And
Yeah.
that, you know, feels really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaks
Yeah.
volumes when you actually see it materialize, though, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think that is yet to come. And I think it's a beautiful opportunity, not
Mm,
only for our community, so to speak, in terms of the South Asian culture,
yeah,
but also as an evolution
yeah,
and a
yeah.
growth of
Mm,
humanity. I'm going to
mhm,
take the race out of it, but as
mhm,
a human species, of as we getting to have this human experience.
mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's beautiful.
It is.
Tell me a little bit about some of the pieces or attributes that keep you on track to your purpose.
Mhm.
Because there are so many things that we can do and be and spaces to align with, especially in your realm of work. I mean, you wear very many different hats. Yes, they all converge into one, but what are the attributes that keep you on track with your purpose?
My kids.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, I think, for me, that's a grounding element for sure. It's not just about me anymore and me healing. It's about me cycle breaking, but it's also about me being able to be there for them and,
Mhm.
make sure that they are supported and learn everything that we want to give them.
Mhm.
And so that that thought process anchors me with continuing to learn, continuing to work,
Right.
continuing to do, continuing to serve, because that also serves as a model for them. And
Right.
and in so doing helps with that cycle breaking, so
Sure.
that they are living in a place where they understand that speaking up is a beautiful thing, that feelings
Mhm.
are a beautiful thing. And no matter where they are on the spectrum of feelings, you need to
Mhm.
express them and emote them. And that learning is continual, and that this isn't about being competitive. This is about living your life.
Yeah.
So wanting to pass that down, that's what keeps me on track.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We've talked a fair bit about not only the cultural perspective of where we both come from originally, but how do you see the shift with people who don't share the same culture amongst us?
The shift in what way? Like,
The shift in their own growth. I mean, therapy has been a very Caucasian kind of therapeutic
Mhm.
way of dealing and going through an experience, so to speak, right? Like it's not a given that other cultures have been privy to or welcome it even. So with the work that you're doing in bringing all of the facets of it together, how has that shifted a non-Asian culture? Have you seen it
Yeah,
shift
yeah.
and be more receptive? Because, like you said, the Eastern components of what we bring to the table were maybe shun upon.
Yeah.
Have they welcomed that? On a broader scale, obviously.
Yeah, we are thankfully in an era and in a time where now these practices and these approaches and mindsets are trendy.
Yeah, I
And
suppose. Yeah,
so they're everywhere. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing at all. It's great because it's now part of our everyday lexicon, and that's
yeah,
exciting.
yeah.
So we're expanding the tools and, hopefully sharing them, helping a lot of people heal. And I will say that it's my hope is that it's not maintained as a trend, or as something trendy to do, that my encouragement is that people should really dig into it, because there's so much
Mm.
more than just the surface level of going through a vinyasa, or, a series of asanas, and
Yeah,
like there's so much more to it, right?
right.
So my encouragement is, sure, you scratch the surface, but dig in. And if it's
Yeah,
not yoga, then, maybe contemplate meditation. And then a lot of people, will be like, meditation's too much, and then I say, you know what, start with breath work, right? Because that is going to help you do what? Connect to yourself and understand yourself there. And then we can move from there into meditation, and you'll see that it's not as daunting as you think it is,
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
also based on the understanding as to what it is. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people feel meditation, you got to empty your mind. Well,
Yep. Yeah.
just like, if you go to a yoga class, you might be more woo-woo.
Mhm.
Or if you a vegetarian, then you are malnutritioned. Like
Mhm.
it's their stereotypical
Mhm.
understanding and definition as to what it is. So how else can we redefine
Yep.
introspection
Oh,
and
yeah.
self-healing and ultimately breaking trauma cycles? But that might be a little way too far out there for somebody to say, okay, I want to look at some of my own stuff that's
Right.
happening in my life.
Right.
What does that look like in changing that narrative?
Yeah. So my automatic question is, okay, is there anything that you do in your life that you really love? And what is that? Just as
Mm-hmm.
an example, someone might come back with saying, you know what, I love painting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, great. So when you're painting, right, how do you feel? What are you doing? What's happening? Oh, I get in the zone, I'm really in it. And,
Right.
I really just spend my time, like figuring out what it is that I want to do, what, brushes, whatever. And they go on, and I say, you know what? That is a form of meditation,
That's right.
doing it without even realizing it, right?
Yeah.
So when we start to put it in context to the things that we do in our life, and the fact that meditation shows up and can show up as a way of living,
Mm-hmm.
not
That's right.
just a practice,
That's right.
now we're starting to understand it a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
So that's usually the path that I take with people, especially those who are like, I can't, I can't
That's
clear my
right.
mind. There's too much noise. And even in that commentary, I love to jump into that, because I'm like, well, that means that it's working for you, because that's actually
Mm.
what's supposed to happen,
That's
right?
right. Yes, exactly.
We
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
expect ourselves to sit down and then immediately expect silence from our brains. That's impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the
Mm-hmm.
simple fact that we're always going to have neurons firing.
Exactly.
You know, if
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
don't, that means something is wrong,
That's
so
right.
so
Yeah.
so we don't want that to be the case. So let's acknowledge the fact that that's a good thing and that's
Yeah.
necessary. And then you clearing your mind or calming your mind is something that we've got to define together and
Hmm.
individualize to you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. How has this proven for you
Mm.
to rechange the narrative from that perspective, but move it away from religion? And I know this is going
Oh,
to go
yeah.
big
Oh, no.
because
Yeah.
we have, when we touch on religion and well, why, I'm going to just go and talk to my pastor, I'm going to go and talk to my pundit, I'm just going to go and talk to all these other religious figures that we have
Mhm.
of why do you want to wear your dirty laundry outside to some therapist? So nothing's wrong with you. My mom, like that narrative. So how do you create that separation for for the people who you feel that need it, but just changing the narrative so when it's out there on this thing, this massive hamster wheel that we have called the media,
Mhm.
they get a supportive, reinforced message of it's a good idea.
To go talk to somebody
That's
and
right.
find help. Yeah.
Outside of the religious
The
scope.
religious scope. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the angle that I take with that is if the person who gives you that religious anchoring serves you in a way that helps you heal, then that's not a bad place to start.
Mhm.
But talking to other people with experience and with expertise and education, my three E's, right, can give you other points of view. And so
Mhm.
if you think about it as, you know, and this is the other stigma that I think we face with going to therapy, right? Is that when you go to therapy, automatically the stigma is there's something wrong, right?
Right.
Or that if I'm going to therapy, I have to have something wrong,
That's right.
in
That's
order
right.
to go and utilize those services. But that's not the case.
That's
Therapy,
right.
in the most simple terms, is really gaining additional perspective. Your
Mhm.
therapist, your counselor, your peer support specialist, your coach is
Mhm.
a person who stands alongside you to give you other perspectives and help you with your journey, not
Yeah.
to solve all your problems for you, right?
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
not even to just being extreme here, to look at where your stars are aligning or not aligning, from
Mm.
from that religious standpoint, and
Yeah.
can those things, come into play? For sure, like absolute maybe, who knows, but what you're feeling here and now and what you're thinking, your perception is of course, as we've identified in this conversation, a result of so many different variables.
That's right.
Can't just pinpoint it to one thing. It's
Yeah.
not just about your kundalis and your stars and all of that. It's about everything coming together.
Yeah.
So why limit yourself to only one point of view,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Yeah. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree with all you've said.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to take it a step further and say the religion that you may be practicing wasn't birthed out of the country you're living in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So therefore, the context of that is different.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So we live in if we were both still living in India, it'd be a little bit different.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Life would be different, nuances would be different, culture would be different. We
Yeah.
don't live there.
No, no. And, I think this is probably going to open a can of worms as well, but like, I think again, we do have the opportunity to utilize the teachings and the nuances of our
Mhm.
religion in a safer way.
Mhm.
Whereas in certain places,
Yeah,
not so much.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's not just our culture, it's in
It's every culture.
a lot of other cultures.
Yeah,
So, but,
absolutely.
being able to be in that position, coming full circle, where we have the opportunity to embrace a non-limited view, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
something that can work for us if
Yeah.
we allow it to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. And I know I could talk to you, continue this conversation for hours.
Likewise. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I know it's definitely on the cards for us to do another interview and just
Yeah.
delve into maybe more um, courageous topics. And I know this was pretty courageous in itself too. So with all that you've done
Mhm.
and all that you've experienced, and I know you have a trajectory going forward in supporting others on their healing journey and creating different platforms that it's easy accessible for them to get it.
Mhm.
What else is on the cards? Because I don't believe that's just the only thing that Dr. Mala is going to do. I think there's going to be other things. So, what else is on the cards for you moving forward?
Yeah. Well, right now, I am the chief clinical officer at a beautiful, beautiful company called recovery.com. And
Mhm.
that platform is quite literally, very simply put, there to help with connecting people to care.
Yeah,
And that's our mission. And what I love is that it ties into my own of being able to, help as many people as we possibly can with their healing journey.
nice.
So my hope is that that continues and that we continue to be very innovative in how we do that, and reach as many populations as we possibly can doing that. I am also the CEO and founder of my own company, the Synergy Center, which now my husband, who's the director of wellness there, runs and manages. So it's really, me kind of just supporting him on the side.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
that center is meant to, again, make care accessible from a coaching perspective, from a mindset perspective, from a wellness perspective.
Hmm.
And we actually went virtual well before COVID. So
Right.
at all of our services, we were actually brick and mortar, and then we switched over to
Mm.
virtual pre-COVID.
Okay.
And then we're doing a hybrid, both in person as well as virtual services. And we've continued that to this day. And, my hope for that is, again, to just be able to make care accessible,
Yeah.
custom to whatever people need. And that's that, the soapbox that I stand on for integrative, customized care.
Yeah.
Um, so that's continuing in terms of my messaging and advocacy. Um, I have actually I have a few free booklets that I'm
Mm.
publishing quickly here,
Nice.
and there is another bigger journey and jaunt for authorship in the
Hmm.
works.
Good.
So that will be up and coming, but I'm so excited to be sharing resources that I can again just give to people.
Yeah.
Um, and that's actually going to be happening within the next couple of weeks. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Well, you send me the links and I'll put it all in the show notes
yeah.
when we air this for sure. Then people have more access to it. So,
Absolutely.
absolutely happy to spread that message for you for sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful that we were able to have this dynamic, interesting conversation
Mhm.
and for you to share your experiences and your wisdom and your knowledge from what you've learned over the years, but your your future going forward and what you're choosing to embark on.
Mhm.
So I appreciate you sharing, Dr. Mala. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for holding
You're welcome.
space. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.